Part 71. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 701. Chapter 701. Suchan has the qualifications of a magician? The mayor of the town, Uncle Fu, also sighed. Yes, the beast tide that occurs once in 20 years will probably come again in a few months. I have to quickly notify the people of the town and those adventurers to organize an evacuation. Suchan's heart warmed up as he listened, remembering the heroic deeds the adults told him about fighting against the beast tide. But then I thought that these were all piles of living lives, and gradually calmed down. At this time, the mayor, Uncle Fu, was staring at Suchan with a frown on his face, looking at Suchan in a daze. Dudley's father was about to ask what happened when the rich uncle slapped his head and shouted, "Oh! I finally remembered. Look at my memory. The last time I sent my youngest son to school, I saw a man about the same size as Suchan. I heard from others that he was a boy who was accidentally discovered by a magician in a small mountain village. He was very handsome. What about magic talent? That lucky boy is also as thin as Suchan. I heard it's because of magic or something. Alas, a layman like me can't figure out that profound truth. Anyway, the reason why the lucky boy is so thin is because of him. Have a talent for magic." Ah! This surprised Suchan. "Is this really true?" "No way." Dudley's father said with some suspicion. "I don't know about this kid Suchan yet, and he doesn't have any special abilities. Haha, I just made a random suggestion. It would be too scary to say that he is a thin man or a magician." The mayor touched his belly. He said, "And it's not right that all magicians are skinny." Everyone laughed. Haha. Grandpa Zime looked at Suchan carefully and said, "I have never found anything wrong with little Suchan, but he is very healthy. But I still admire Suchan's cleverness. I'm sure our little Balu town will have a great magician." Grandpa Zime's words made even Suchan feel embarrassed. "So be it," the rich uncle said. "I have a magic book that my eldest son brought back, Introduction to Magic. Yes, it's an introduction to magic. Let me show it to Suchan. Maybe there will be a great magician." Everyone laughed. After the mayor and the others left, Suchan's family of 3 sat together. Suchan looked at his father and mother, stood up and said, "Dad, Mom, do you think Suchan is a man?" Yes, our Suchan is a man." Ha ha ha. My parents both laughed. "Then I declare that this new big man in our family will bear all the expenses of the family from today on. I will take over my father's previous hunting. If your son is not 100% sure, he is at least 70% true to his father, isn't he? Easily hunting a blue rabbit will be enough for us to live for a long time." Suchan patted his chest and said. My mother was a little worried and just about to object. My father gently held my mother down, took a deep look at Suchan, and said solemnly, "Well, from now on, our Suchan will be responsible for all the financial expenses of our family, and Suchan will officially join my school." After a pause, Dad said fiercely, "However, if you make me hungry, I will pull your ears when you come back." Hey. Suchan felt embarrassed and touched his ears. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 702. Chapter 702. Entering the mountains. Just after lunch, Suchan put the bamboo basket on his back and tied the bag. I said hello to my parents and was about to go into the mountains. Silly, however, panted slightly and ran over. She was still wearing a tight-fitting swordsman outfit, holding a half-length dagger in her little hand, and looked at Suchan excitedly. Suchan looked at her in confusion. What was the little girl doing dressed like this? Silai blinked her big flashing eyes and said softly, "Brother Xiaodong, I want to go into the mountains with you." "No." Suchan refused without hesitation. I said, why are you dressed like this today? You think that the mountains are my small courtyard. You can come in if you like. Go back quickly. It's not peaceful in the mountains now. Be careful. I'll go back and talk to your dad about you. No, brother Xiaodong, just take me with you. Xiaonazai started to act coquettishly, my skills are better than yours. Maybe you still want me to save you. I want you, a girl, to save me. Hee hee. Suchen smiled, then changed his expression, pretending to be angry and said, go back quickly, don't let Uncle Zhou worry. Xiao Salai pouted her red mouth and looked at Suchen pitifully with her big watery eyes. Suchen was most afraid of this. What a surprise! His psychological defense almost collapsed. Suchen hardened his heart and said solemnly, if you don't go back, I will beat you. But it was obvious that Suchen's words had no deterrent effect. Xiaonazai remained motionless and just looked at Suchen. Suchen collapsed, okay. Before she finished speaking, Salai jumped up happily, took Suchen's hand and said in a sweet voice, Brother Xiaodong is better, Brother Xiaodong is the best. Alas, I really can't do anything to you. As promised, you have to listen to me when you enter the mountain. Follow me closely and don't run around. Suchen warned. Xiaonazai agreed quickly. Suchen shook his head and took Salai's hand into the mountain. Usually Xiao Salai also tried to fight with Suchen, but as early as 2 years ago, Suchen had a bad relationship. Xiao Salai competed with her skills. There was nothing she could do. She couldn't even defeat a girl, which was a huge blow to Suchen's fragile psychology. For this reason, Suchen specially learned swordsmanship from Uncle Zhou, but it turned out that Suchen was really an ordinary person. Don't have that talent. Every time he challenged Salai, either Salai secretly let him go and tied with him, or else she was intimidated by Suchen and used her 70% ability to fight him while Suchen failed miserably. Alas! It's hard to look back on the past. It seems that I must marry this wife. With such good skills, we also feel safe. But once we enter the mountains, the difference becomes apparent. Although Salai has good skills and quick reactions, but there was nothing she could do in the mountains. There were dense vines and vines everywhere, and ferocious plants that she avoided from time to time, which made Salai a little embarrassed. But Suchen seemed to be a different person as soon as he entered the mountains, like a fish in water. Here, like a bird soaring in the sky, there is no sound or trace on the feet of the clouds and flowing water. Along the way, Suchen pulled Salai and ran, picking up some things from time to time. Although this time he only went 5 or 6 miles, he did not dare to be like that. She went deep into the jungle as usual, but Xiao Salai was still out of breath and dripping with sweat. Suchen finally found some confidence and said slightly proudly, Girl, you see, this mountain is no better than outside. You see how heavy you are running all the way, and even the prey is scared away by you. Don't come here next time, it's really dangerous here. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 703. Chapter 703, A Clever Trap. Xiao Salai calmed down her heaving chest, her red face was steaming from running, she pouted her little mouth again, hugged Suchen's arm with both hands, and said, No, wherever Brother Xiaodong goes, I will go too. Suchen really has no choice. It would be great if Xiao Salai was a younger brother. If you dare to say something willfully and then kick your ass, get out of here. But this is a younger sister. Looking at Xiao Salai's weak and dependent look, Suchen was also very helpful. What should I do? My future wife, just obey her. Waiting for Salai's breathing to calm down, Suchen asked Salai to squat aside first. He was looking for her not far away. I found a place that I liked, and placed 3 piles of the blue rabbit poop I just picked up in 3 directions. I also directly placed the Milanese grass soaked in strong liquor in the last place, without any cover-up, just still there. She and Salai stuffed some fresh Milanese grass on their bodies. After Suchan finished doing this, he came over, looking a little proud and a little worried. Seeing Suchan's strange expression, Xiao Salai asked curiously. Suchan, he replied, this is only 5 miles deep in the mountains, and you can see the figure and excrement of the blue rabbit. It seems that you won't be able to stay in this mountain for long. Xiao Salai held Suchan's right hand with both hands, her eyes full of comfort. Suchan smiled and pinched her small nose. Xiao Salai wrinkled her cute nose reluctantly. Suchan suddenly fell down. He leaned over and stretched out an index finger towards Xiao Salai and gently sealed her mouth. Xiao Salai also leaned down knowingly. After hearing a few rustling sounds, 2 fluffy snow-white blue rabbits jumped out. First, he smelled the smell of his own poop and ran away quickly, and then his little nose moved again. After a slight hesitation, he ran towards the place where the Milanese grass was placed. The slightly larger one, the rabbit, straightened up, raised his ears and looked around, and then he couldn't wait to chew the poop with the other rabbit with his back turned. After a while, the 2 silly blue rabbits fell down, with their 3-petal little mouths hanging there. They didn't move at all. Suchan and Salai ran over, took off the hanko woven bags from their waists, carried the 2 fat blue rabbits, and put them in. Little Salai looked on excitedly. He jumped up and wanted to touch the 2 cute rabbits. Suchan had no choice but to carefully knock out the 2 rabbits. While touching, Xiao Salai asked brother Xiaodong, "Blue rabbit is so cute. But they are so stupid. I heard Uncle Dudley say that all monsters are very smart. Why are these 2 rabbits so stupid? They can't see any obvious traps." Suchan buried the remaining Milan grass deeply, pulled Xiao Salai away and said, "This is just a simple comparison. Blue rabbits love to be clean, and what they hate the most is their own poop. I placed their poop opposite the Milanese grass soaked in strong liquor, just to let them compare it. You know, if the person you hate the most and an ordinary person give you flowers at the same time, even if you don't usually look at that ordinary person, you will take the flowers from that ordinary person without hesitation. The same goes for this rabbit. Who calls it a monster? It is smart, knows how to compare, has strong likes and dislikes, and will turn a blind eye to even the most obvious traps. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion." Author, 7 years. Chapter 704. Chapter 704. What is she going to do? Wow, brother Xiaodong, you are so bad, you deliberately used poop to disgust Blue Bunny. Xiao Salai said with her cute tongue. Ha ha ha, the harvest was good this time. I caught 2 at a time. After I went back and exchanged the money, I bought you the most fragrant wooden comb that we took a fancy to last time. Suchan said happily. Xiao Salai happily took Suchan's arm and replied. When he got home, Suchan carried 2 blue rabbits and showed them off in front of his parents. Dad also praised Suchan well. He told Suchan some precautions about World of Warcraft, then laughed and asked Suchan to deal with the 2 rabbits on his own. Suchan held Xiao Salai's little hand and walked happily on the streets of the town. The 2 blue rabbits' rabbit actually sold 15 silver coins, which made Suchan very happy. You must know that 1 silver coin can be exchanged for 100 copper coins, and 100 silver coins are equivalent to 1 gold coin. But brother Xiaodong has only seen gold coins. I haven't touched it before, so I don't know if gold coins are more comfortable to touch. And for a family of 3 like Suchan, they only spent 2 silver coins a month. Now 15 silver coins made Suchan feel like he was holding money in his pocket. It was much heavier, so I touched it again and again uneasily. I bought the fragrant wooden comb for the little girl Salai, and 5 skewers of candied haws for each person. They skipped home like this. They met the mayor's house halfway. One of the guards said he had brought a book for him. He took out the book wrapped in blue cloth from his arms and gave it to Suchen. Suchen thanked the guard and walked home with the book under his arm. Xiao Silianghang's little tongue licked the candied hose and asked curiously, "Brother Xiaodong, what book did the rich uncle give you?" Su Chen said mysteriously, "Hey, I'll show it to you when you get home. This is a treasure book. Once you train it, you can become a great mage." He. Xiao Silai knew that her brother Xiaodong was teasing her, but she still couldn't help her curiosity. When she got home, she gave all the remaining 14 silver coins and 75 copper coins to her mother. She didn't know how to give these, how to spend a large amount of money appropriately. "It's better to leave it to my mother." Suchen sat cross-legged on his bed and slowly opened the blue cloth wrapped in it, revealing a half-new 1 centimeter thick book. Looking at the surface, there is nothing strange, and the paper here is not as thin as the one on Blue Star in the previous life. Such a 1 centimeter thick book only has more than 30 pages in total. Xiao Silai sat next to her, her little head stretched out curiously. He came over, looked at the book and read Introduction to Magic. "Wow, Brother Xiaodong, it turns out to be a magic book." "Well, the rich uncle said it was a book left by his eldest son and he brought it to me to read," Suchen said. While turning the first page, he saw the first title, Introduction to Magic. As he looked at it, Suchen became more and more depressed. Isn't this the same as what was written in the YY novels he read before? What? There are several types of magic such as feng shui, fire, earth, etc. The space in which we live is surrounded by various elements. Suchen's head is dizzy. He suppressed the depression in his heart and felt the surroundings to see if he could sense it. Elemental elves or something like that. Well, elements, elemental elves sister. It smells so good. Is this the smell of that little girl? The smell of this little girl is getting more and more tempting. Huh. She seems to be approaching me. Wait, what is she going to do? What is she going to do? Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 705. Chapter 705. Xiao Sheng, I love you so much. Suchen was so excited, his heart was beating wildly. Not wanting to be hit on the forehead, Suchen opened his eyes and found that it was Xiao Silai who bumped her head. Xiao Silai blinked her big eyes and asked, "Brother Xiaodong, what's wrong with you? I saw how good you were smiling." Cough. Suchen coughed several times and said solemnly, "Brother Xiaodong, I was feeling the magic elements in the surrounding space just now." "Oh, Brother Xiaodong, do you feel it?" Xiao Silai asked with her big eyes blinking. "Well, what, almost. Oh, by the way, have you felt the magic element?" Suchen covered it up and then asked. Xiao Silai said blankly, "No, I just smelled the aroma of the meat cooked by Aunt Lily, and. Xiao Silai suddenly blushed. "What else?" Suchen asked curiously. No, I'm going to help Aunt Lily cook." "Brother Xiaodong, please continue reading." As he said that, the little girl ran out in a hurry with a red face. Suchen looked at himself strangely and secretly wondered, is there something so man about me that can make Xiaona's heart beat so much? I kept thinking about it. Trying hard to find the charm of a man in himself, carefully searching every skin and bone in his body. And the induction magic element has long been lost to some other world. The voice of my mother calling for dinner came from outside. Dad called Suchen to call Uncle Zhou. Suchen responded and had no choice but to pack up the charming search and ran as fast as he could to get Uncle Zhou. The family started with Xiao Silai and Uncle Zhou. They ate their dinner happily. But at the dinner table, their parents and Uncle Zhou glanced at Suchen and Silai from time to time. Their ambiguous looks made even Suchen blush, let alone the tender-faced little one. "Silly. After the meal, the three adults were mumbling together for some reason. Suchen and Silly were still sitting together and continued to flip through the magic introduction book. In general, Suchen still looked at this book. What I gained is that I know some general magic systems, and the last few pages also talk about several meditation methods, and meditation is the best way to exercise and concentrate your mental power. At this time, my mother pushed my father, who was sitting in a wooden wheelchair. He and Uncle Joer came to Suchen's room, and the three adults looked at Suchen and Salai with smiles on their faces. Suchen and Salai both subconsciously had a premonition of something, and they glanced at each other secretly, and then quickly she dodged away. Lily's mother smiled haha, came over and took Silly's hand with a smile. Uncle Joer said to the two half-year-old children, we discussed it just now, and we both think it's good. Now let's take the two of you together, decide on your marriage in advance and get married when you are old enough. Suchen's eyes widened and he couldn't help but swallowed. His heart trembled and he said, Uncle Joer, you are too direct. You don't even have the slightest bit of democracy. I am a little boy. I still want to twist it a few times to express my feelings. Innocent, please finish your sentence right now. Xiao Shen, I love you so much. Salai beside her has buried her head in her mother's arms for a long time and still can't come out. Three powerful matchmakers seeing the newlyweds smiling happily with hee hee. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 706. Chapter 706, Meditation is nothing but white and black. Suchen, who had been thundered all night, finally sent Uncle Joer and Xiao Salai away. He returned to his room and recalled the scene just now, and now his mind was a little paralyzed. Suchen's scalp felt numb just thinking about the auspicious two-headed cuckoo cow for weddings, the pairing of flowers and blooming happy events, and even more, such as harmony, beauty, and early birth of a baby. No wonder Xiao Salai ran to her room early and covered her head with the quilt. It was pity that she had to face the uninterrupted, batched, organized, and premeditated high-yield bombing alone that night. No one dared to ask them to be matchmakers. Use yourself and Salai as trainers and have a good time. Suchen shook his head and patted his forehead heavily before finally regaining consciousness. Thinking of Silly and what he would say to his parents and Uncle Joer tonight, Suchen lay in bed unable to sleep. Could this be the legendary premarital anxiety disorder? It's been so many years since you got married, right? Suchen tossed and turned, and couldn't help but sit up cross-legged. He took a deep breath of the cool late-night air mixed with the faint scent of mosquito-repellent herbs, and his head became clearer. Suddenly I remembered the introduction to magic I watched in the evening. Although there are several types of meditation mentioned later, they all follow one principle, which is what the Taoists in the previous life called holding the essence and keeping one. Suchen thought for a while and started following one of the meditation methods. Gradually, Suchen's aura became smoother and lighter, and finally almost disappeared. Suchen's mind slowly became like a ball of white light, and he could not see clearly, and there was nothing there. It seemed hazy, but extremely agile. In this way, Suchen fell into deep meditation for the first time, and he learned it by himself. The body felt as if it was flying, the breathing had stopped, and the skin all over the body, especially the exposed pores, felt cool. It seems as if these thousands of pores are exhaling and inhaling. And all of this was completely unconscious behavior on the part of Suchen, who did it in a daze. When Suchen woke up, the sky had just turned white. Although he didn't lie down to sleep, Suchen felt refreshed and energetic after meditating. Suchen jumped out of bed and punched and kicked a few times. It seemed that the punches and kicks were getting more powerful. Suchen snickered, hee hee, this introduction to magic is really good, just for a moment, brother, I got started with meditation as powerful as a genius. The day when I want to invade the palace and win the title of Maru is not far away. The thought flashed, oh, let's take advantage of this genius strength to try to see if I can feel an elemental elf fairy or something. Thinking about it, Suchen immediately went to bed and crossed his legs. I sat down and tried to feel it. Half an hour later, hee hee, hee hee, hee hee hee. Someone's giggle came from the room, and Suchen reacted quickly and wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth. Just now I ran to that girl Salai just thinking about it. I really despised my poor concentration. He sighed helplessly and clasped his strong hands. Well, it seems that this meditation is just a waste of time. If you sleep well at night, you will have strength during the day. Since the last time Suchen's character broke out, he had caught a month had passed since the Blue Rabbit. During this period, Suchen did not stop once because of the intense excitement of meditation. Because his family was financially well off, Suchen only went up the mountain 3 times, but each trip became more dangerous. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 707. Chapter 707, Life and Death. The last time Suchen felt the aura that made his heart palpitate from a distance, he pulled Xiao Salai and ran away desperately. It was a breath that I would never forget in my life. It was the reason that made my father sigh silently while caressing his broken leg when no one was around. It was every hunter's nightmare, the fierce volcano cat. Fortunately, the beast didn't chase the 2 of them, but Suchen is still afraid. The damage last time was severe enough, and Suchen couldn't stand it a second time. Today, the mayor of Balu town finally announced that all the old, weak, women, children and children under the age of 14 in the town will immediately evacuate Balu town and settle in the nearest city of Milida. There are refugee camps set up in every major city. Other personnel must be stationed in Balu town unconditionally, including the adventurers here, while magicians and important personnel can go and stay freely. Suchen was only 12.5 years old. Together with Xiao Salai, the family rented a large ox cart and prepared to go to Milida. Uncle Zhou'er is a famous swordsman in the town and the coach of the guards of Balu town, and Uncle Zhou'er himself is determined to stay. Xiao Salai did not cry for her father to leave. When the beasts come, men who can fight are left behind. It has been a human tradition since ancient times. It is also the glory of men and the reason why men are men. For a long time, Suchen watched Xiao Salai still holding Uncle Zhou'er and crying softly, and walked over slowly. He gently patted Salai's shoulder and comforted her. Salai, Uncle Zhou'er is a famous swordsman. We only need to stay in Milida for a few days, and then we can drink your father's celebration wine when we come back. Suchen gently pulling Salai out of Uncle Zhou'er's arms. Uncle Zhou'er looked at Suchen and nodded, saying in a deep voice, Suchen, my Salai will be left to you. You have to treat her well. Well, Uncle Zhou'er, I will definitely give you back your fat little Silila when you come back. Su Chen tried his best to smile and said, okay, silly, let's go. We'll be back in a few days. Silly wiped her tears and choked, Dad, you must wait for Silly to come back. Well, hurry up and get in the car. Uncle Zhou'er said with reluctance, but did not show any sadness, and smiled stubbornly. Every time the beast tide is the time when the life of Malu continent is devastated. Suchen doesn't know what other places are like. I only know that almost every 20 years half of the people in the town of Balu are replaced, and a new mayor is replaced, and each mayor is killed in battle. In Balu, there are no deserters, only glorious battle deaths. Mr. Dudley, I don't know whether it was a blessing or a curse that my father had both legs broken, but this time he had to follow the refugees to the city of Milida. At least for Suchen, this was a good thing, as the story of a blessing in disguise. Because she knew how she could face the situation where her intact father was about to rush to the battlefield where he had a near-death experience. Xiao Salai was silent along the way, sitting quietly beside Suchan, her eyes unfocused. Suchan could only caress her gently. He held her silky hair and silently comforted her. Suchan looked at the sun that appeared and disappeared in the clouds, and prayed silently, wishing that Uncle Joer would be safe and sound. The Gugu cow pulling the cart walked slowly. From time to time, there was a low coo sound. Suchan and his ox cart finally arrived at the city of Milida when the sun was about to set. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 708. Chapter 708 The Changes in the Body After Meditation. Suchan looked at this majestic city from a distance, and finally imagined what the walls of the ancient city of his homeland looked like. Looking at the green-brown wall that was more than 30 meters high and the flow of people pouring in under the city gate, Suchan could only feel his own insignificance and powerlessness. Shaking his head, Suchan gathered his thoughts, picked up the baggage and followed the crowd into the city. The refugees who entered Milida were not only from Balu town, but also from other villages and towns around Milida. Suchan's family and Xiao Salai, led by the refugee chief of Balu town, settled in a corner of Milida city against the city wall. After all, they are refugees, living in a simple stone house that has been in use for countless years, and it is located in the most dangerous place, close to the city wall. Suchan stood up and looked at the refugee camp with no end in sight. It was dilapidated and overcrowded everywhere. The prosperous civilization that he imagined did not appear, and Suchan's first impression of Milida city was that of dilapidation. Suchan knew that this was just the worst place in Milida. There was definitely prosperity and civilization, but it was too far away from him. Clenching his fists tightly, and looking at his parents who were busy at the side and Xiao Salai who was in a daze, Suchan secretly swore, "My relatives, my women, will use my fists and my flesh and blood to guarantee their survival and their happiness." After slowly calming down, Suchan helped his mother settle into a new nest. The next day, Xiao Salai was already feeling better. She just stayed with her parents silently, and occasionally smiled at her brother Xiaodong. The daily food in the refugee camp can only guarantee the most basic survival. If you want to eat well, you can only buy it with your own money. Suchan's house was pretty good, including the money Suchan sold for the 2 blue rabbits and a few wild animal skins. There is also a lot of money saved by my parents in the past, excluding the money spent on Suchan's wedding. Although the consumption in Milida city is much higher, it is enough to feed and clothe the family. Of course, this was for other refugees. When Suchan saw the appearance of ordinary streets in Milida city, he knew how big the gap was between a big city and a small town. In the morning, Suchan took the talkative little Salai to Milida to go shopping and relax, so that this girl would no longer look so distressed. The streets are buzzing with people, hawkers, and shouts are coming and going, and the crowds are bustling, just in response to the old saying, "The bustling world is for profit, the bustling world is for profit." The little girl held Suchan's left hand and suddenly said, "Brother Xiaodong, do you feel that you have grown stronger?" Have it?" Suchan asked doubtfully. "Xiao." Salai blinked her big eyes and looked at Suchan. She squeezed Suchan's arm with her little hands and said with a smile, "Anyway, Salai feels more comfortable holding brother Xiaodong's arm. It's not as good as before. It's annoying." Suchan looked at Salai's sudden smile, and her eyes suddenly lit up, and she paused. Suchan looked at Salai and blushed, but she felt sweet in her heart. She shook her little hand shyly in front of Suchan's eyes. She said softly, "Brother Xiaodong, brother Xiaodong. Ah. Oh, let's go shopping." Suchan pretended to be calm, but he was sweating profusely in his heart. It's embarrassing. He was fascinated by this little girl again, and he was still on the street. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 709. Chapter 709, A filial son emerges from the stick. Just as she was about to introduce some street gadgets to Xiao Salai that she was only half understanding, she suddenly heard a loud voice like a drake coming from the right side. Yo! When did our Yongan street have such a handsome little girl? Come on, little sister, give your brother a smile. Suchen turned his head in an instant and glared at the drake. But it was a young boy dressed like a young man, followed by 2 followers. He looked at Xiao Salai in a sullen manner, and even touched her the claws stretched towards Silly's face. Suchen slapped the claws hard with a severed hand, only to hear a scream of "ah," and the duck-voiced man fell to the ground and shouted loudly while covering the dislocated hand. Suchen secretly despised, I have watched so many movies, but none of them screamed as energetically as you. It's really unworthy of me not to act like a duck. I was thinking about it here, but I pulled Xiao Salai over there. He followed the small alleys and remote paths. Suchen knew that he could not swallow his anger when encountering such a thing, let alone be merciful. When Suchen first came to Malu, he tried hard to pretend to be a good gentleman for a few days, but later he gave in to the legendary Shivlin was so annoyed that he showed his true nature. Anyone who dared to offend him would be severely chopped off. Only a filial son would emerge from under the stick. When Suchen slapped the drake in the throat, he had already decided to live a good life in the city of Millida. Open up and vent out the depression caused by the beast tide. Just when Suchen led Xiao Salai to a secluded dead end that he didn't know about. After a while, those 3 were destined to be tragic today. The man is here. The male duck saw Suchen and the others at a glance. What he saw just now was the profile of Xiao Salai. This time he looked at the palm-sized part of Salai's right face. Black birthmark, shouting TMD. It turns out to be an ugly monster. How dare you hit me today? As he spoke, he waved his other hand, which was still intact, and shouted, fuck me, beat me hard, beat me until you die. Drake knows that these 2.5-year-old children are just country bumpkins, otherwise they would not go out on the street to do this and that. As long as they are not somewhat famous people, he who was born into a noble family will not be held accountable for killing civilians. Responsible. Suchen knew that this kind of young master was naughty, but he didn't expect that he would treat human life like dirt. He didn't say anything at the moment. He already knew that the 2 followers were just half-baked swordsmen, and they had been chasing him for so long. Time, safely left Xiao Salai where she was, and pounced directly towards the male duck. Seeing how ferocious Suchen was, roaring like a wild beast, the male duck was so frightened that he took a few steps back and shouted hurriedly. 2 masters were captured by him. In this world, masters are always so rare. At least the male duck voice has not encountered them. In the past, there were not many people who were bullied by him who were good at resisting, but they were all because of fear. With the power of the nobles behind him, he swallowed his anger. This time he encountered such a desperate guy, and the fight was as fierce as a beast. The beast-like eyes were locked on him, as if he wanted to eat him alive. Male duck voice had already turned pale with fear and fell to the ground. However, the 2 masters he had relied on all year round were brutally knocked away by Suchen, and he was directly exposed in front of Suchen. Online games, I really don't want to have unlimited fusion. Author, 7 years. Chapter 710. Chapter 710 The crime deserves death. Suchen did not pounce directly on the male duck. Seeing that he fell to the ground and would not leave for the time being, he turned around and waved his hand harshly to an attendant. Although Suchen learned a few tricks from Uncle Zhou'er, Suchen was out of shape when fighting. Just like Dudley's father, every move is exactly the same as the beast in the mountains, ferocious, savage, and merciless. Either don't fight, or fight with all your might. This is also the reason why Suchen always loses in competitions with Salai. They don't dare to use real moves, because Suchen's moves are not for fighting, but for fighting to ensure survival. The follower who was thrown by Suchen was hit on the back of the head and fell to the ground with a bang without even making a sound. This poor kid is probably either mentally disabled or hemiplegic. Only then did the other follower react. He turned around and saw that his companion had fallen to the ground, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. The follower instinctively took a step back, but Suchen followed up with a wave of his hands and a swing of his legs, causing a whoosh sound like a tiger sweeping its tail. The equally pitiful follower's head fell directly to the ground as if it had been hit by a stone wall. He didn't make a sound, but he didn't know which nerve was hit, and his right leg couldn't help but twitch. When Suchen hits someone, he only needs to confirm that he is an enemy. He can hit the head but never the body. It's so easy to hit the head, every hit is accurate. No matter how light a fist is placed on the head, it will be a serious injury. Anyway, as long as you don't die here, no one will catch you, and the detection methods are not very good. As long as the traces are done well, it's no big deal. As Suchen, the son of the famous hunter Dudley in Balu town, dealing with the traces was a piece of cake. Of course, it won't work this time. After all, there are so many people on the street who see the conflict between Drake and himself. The eyes of the people are sharp. Millida city is not Balu town. The bigger the place, the less ancient people's hearts are. This is also the reason why Suchen wants to kill him. If he doesn't punish this guy to death, who knows when this guy will jump out again. The nobles are powerful and must be guarded against. After Suchen beat the two followers, he walked directly to the Drake and beat the trembling guy hard without waiting for him to say a word. Suchen did not kill him and left his head intact. After just a fat beating, except for the head, there is absolutely no good meat in this Drake's body. He also took special care of someone's body and gently stepped on him a few times. Suchen didn't offend others, but if he offended him, he would meet the king of hell and his skin would still peel off until he died. After playing for a long time, Xiao Salai pulled the corner of her clothes behind her. Although Salai saw Suchen beating people many times, and every time he beat people in such a dark way, she was still a little worried because she was unfamiliar with the place. Suchen finally stopped. Just because this bitch scolded his dear little Salai, he deserved death. It was a good thing that I gave him a massage. Looking at the young master who had passed out long ago, Suchen walked to the corner, pulled out a bit of soil and shaped it into a small ball. Turning around, he saw Salai blushing in embarrassment, and said coquettishly that, silly, can you step aside for a moment, brother Xiaodong, I have something very important to do. Little Salai didn't know that he was going to do something bad, so she blushed, turned around and walked away.